Hey there. Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're diving into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
You've probably heard of it. It's that book about money that everyone and their uncle seems to have an opinion on.
Right.
Some people swear by it, others think it's full of hot air.
Mhm.
So we're going to crack it open, get to the heart of its message, and explore why it's caused such a stir.
Sounds good.
So what is it about Rich Dad, Poor Dad that's made it such a financial phenomenon?
Well, I think one of the things that's really interesting about Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the way that it uses the author's personal story, to kind of frame these two contrasting perspectives on wealth.
Okay.
He grows up with these two father figures, right?
Yeah.
You got his biological dad, the poor dad, and then his friend's father, the rich dad.
And they have very different approaches to money, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what's so compelling about the book. You've got the poor dad, who's highly educated, represents that traditional path.
Mm.
Get good grades, land a secure job, work hard.
Right, the American dream.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the rich dad, who's this self-made entrepreneur, and he's advocating for financial literacy as the true key to wealth.
Yeah, it's like two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
So you've got these two contrasting views. What are some of the key differences in their mindsets? Like, how do they view money differently?
Well, the poor dad very much believes in working for money, that classic kind of work ethic.
Right, work hard and you'll get rewarded.
Exactly. Whereas the rich dad is really preaching the importance of making money work for you. So it's this shift in mindset from being a slave to the paycheck to really understanding how to leverage money to create wealth. And that's a core message throughout the book.
It's about being in the driver's seat of your finances
Absolutely.
instead of letting money control you.
Right. Taking control.
Yeah. So it sounds like financial literacy is a big theme here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just as crucial as academic education.
Okay, so it's not just about going to school and getting good grades.
Not according to Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It's about understanding how money works.
Exactly. It's like learning a new language, the language of money, so you can understand how to make it work for you.
Right. It's like that old saying, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy a yacht big enough to sail right up to it.
Lofus.
Right.
Okay, maybe not exactly, but you get the idea.
It's about understanding the rules of the game.
Exactly.
So you can make choices that align with your goals.
Yeah, whether it's that yacht or, financial freedom or something else entirely.
So how does Rich Dad, Poor Dad challenge the traditional ideas of what it means to be wealthy?
Well, one of the most compelling ways, I think, is how it dissects this whole idea of assets versus liabilities.
Okay.
And, this is where the rich dad really kind of throws a curveball at conventional thinking.
Yeah, so.
Well, he argues that a house, which is often considered like the ultimate asset,
Right, your home.
can actually be a liability.
Be a liability. Oh, most people would say their house is their biggest asset.
I know, right? It's like financial blasphemy.
Right.
But the book challenges this assumption by reframing assets and liabilities based on cash flow.
Okay, I'm like,
So an asset is something that puts money in your pocket,
makes sense.
while a liability takes money out.
Okay.
So that dream house, with its mortgage payments, property taxes,
Yeah.
endless repairs,
Oh, yeah, the repairs.
it's actually costing you money every month.
That's true.
So the rich dad philosophy would say, instead of pouring all your money into a house that's ultimately a money pit, focus on investing in things that generate income.
Okay, so what kinds of things are we talking about here?
So things like rental properties, for example, or starting a business, building a portfolio of assets that actually generate cash flow and gradually reducing your reliance on that traditional 9-to-5 job.
So it's about having your money work for you rather than the other way around.
Exactly. It's that shift from working for money to having your money work for you. And that's where the concept of financial freedom comes in.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you're not just trading your time for money.
Right.
You're building something that can generate income even when you're not actively working.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're talking about building assets, generating income, but the book goes beyond just telling people to buy assets, right?
Right.
It delves into some pretty unconventional strategies, like this idea of inventing money.
Yes.
What exactly did the rich dad mean by that?
Well, it's not as mysterious as it sounds.
Okay.
It's not about literally printing your own cash.
Okay, good to know.
It's more about recognizing opportunities where others see none.
So it's about using your financial literacy to kind of create wealth, not just stumble upon it.
Exactly. It's about looking at the world through a financial lens, understanding how value is created, and then capitalizing on those opportunities.
So give me an example. How does this inventing money concept play out in the book?
Well, there's this great anecdote in the book about the author and his friend starting a toothpaste tube business as kids.
Toothpaste tubes. Okay, I'm intrigued. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a classic rich dad story, and it really illustrates this whole idea of thinking differently.
So tell me more about this toothpaste tube venture. What was the deal with that?
So it wasn't actually about selling toothpaste.
Okay.
The rich dad challenged them to find a way to make money using discarded toothpaste tubes.
Discarded toothpaste tubes.
Yeah, they collected these tubes, melted them down, and tried to create something new to sell.
Okay, resourceful for sure, but did it work?
Not really.
Right.
The business flopped,
Oh,
but that wasn't the point.
okay.
The lesson was about cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset.
Okay.
It was about seeing potential where others saw trash,
Okay.
about taking action and learning from the experience, even if it meant failing.
That's a valuable lesson in itself. I feel like so many people are paralyzed by the fear of failure.
Absolutely.
They never even try because they're afraid of not succeeding.
Right.
But Rich Dad Poor Dad is saying, hey, failure is part of the process.
It's part of the journey, especially when it comes to financial growth.
Okay, so it's like you're going to stumble, you're going to make mistakes, but that's how you learn and get better.
Exactly. The book even draws this analogy to the Alamo to illustrate this point.
The Alamo, as in, remember the Alamo.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure I see the connection. How does a historical battle relate to personal finance?
Well, it's about the mindset. The Alamo is often seen as this story of heroic sacrifice in the face of overwhelming odds.
Right, brave, but ultimately defeated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the book uses it to highlight how even in defeat, valuable lessons can be learned.
Okay.
It encourages readers to view financial setbacks not as defeats, but as opportunities to learn, adapt, and come back stronger.
So it's about turning that I give up moment into an I'll be back and I'll be better moment.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that resilience and using setbacks as stepping stones.
Okay, I like that. Now, another key concept in the book is this idea of understanding the underlying value of a business.
Yes.
Rich Dad Poor Dad famously states that McDonald's isn't in the hamburger business.
Right.
Wait, what? I'm pretty sure I've eaten my fair share of McDonald's hamburgers.
Hmm.
What else would they be in the business of?
Well, the book argues that McDonald's is ultimately in the real estate business.
The real estate business?
Yeah, their success hinges on securing prime locations for their franchises.
Okay, I see what you mean.
This concept highlights the importance of looking beyond the obvious and understanding the true drivers of value in any business.
It's like that saying, location, location, location.
Exactly.
It applies to businesses as much as it does to real estate.
Right.
So it's not just about what you're selling, it's also about where you are and who you're reaching.
Absolutely. Now, all this ties back to the book's message of taking control of your financial future.
Okay.
And one common excuse that people make is, I don't want to fix toilets.
I've definitely heard that one before.
Right.
It's easy to get bogged down in the nitty-gritty and lose sight of the big picture.
Right. And the Rich Dad philosophy encourages readers to think like business owners, not just workers.
Okay.
So instead of getting stuck fixing toilets, the book suggests building a system, outsourcing tasks, and leveraging other people's skills.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Now, all these lessons and anecdotes are really meant to guide readers towards identifying and confronting their briar patch.
This briar patch concept sounds intriguing. What exactly does it refer to?
Well, it's a metaphor from the Brer Rabbit stories.
Okay.
The briar patch represents a place of fear and discomfort. But for Brer Rabbit, it's also a place of safety because he knows how to navigate it.
So it's about facing your fears head on, understanding that what we perceive as obstacles can often be opportunities for growth.
Yes, the briar patch represents those limiting beliefs and fears holding us back from achieving financial freedom.
So by confronting our personal briar patch, we can actually open ourselves up to opportunities we might have otherwise missed.
Precisely. Rich Dad Poor Dad argues that our financial limitations are often self-imposed. We shy away from investing because of fear, a lack of knowledge, or clinging to these traditional beliefs about money.
Right, we get stuck in our comfort zone.
Exactly. And the book encourages readers to challenge those assumptions and embrace a more empowered mindset.
So it's not just about understanding financial concepts, it's about addressing the psychological barriers that prevent us from taking action.
Absolutely. Now, another area where the book kind of stirs the pot a little bit is in its view of corporations.
Okay, how so?
It argues that the wealthy often use corporations to their advantage, especially when it comes to taxes and asset protection.
That's something I've always found a bit mysterious, to be honest. It's like there's this whole other set of financial rules that most people aren't even aware of.
Yeah, you're right. The book doesn't shy away from the fact that the wealthy often play by a different set of rules,
Right.
but rather than just bemoaning this, rich dad, poor dad, encourages readers to learn those rules and use them to their advantage.
So it's about leveling the playing field by becoming financially literate,
Exactly.
understanding the tools and strategies that are available to everyone, not just the wealthy.
Exactly. The book really emphasizes that financial education is key to bridging the gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Okay.
It's about understanding how the system works and then utilizing, legal strategies to protect and grow your wealth.
That makes a lot of sense. One takeaway that really resonated with me was this emphasis on building a strong financial foundation.
Yes.
It's not just about getting rich quick.
Right.
It's about making smart, sustainable choices that lead to long-term financial security.
Absolutely. The book really stresses the importance of building a solid base for your financial house, just like you would with a physical house.
Right.
Saving is important, but it's not enough.
Okay.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad argues that true wealth comes from building a portfolio of income-generating assets.
So instead of just putting your money in a savings account, it's about investing in things that are actually going to generate cash flow.
Exactly, like those rental properties we talked about, or businesses or stocks.
Right. It's about shifting your mindset from being a consumer to being an investor.
Exactly. Rich Dad, Poor Dad wants you to understand that money is a tool to be put to work,
Okay.
not something to be hoarded or spent carelessly.
This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's challenged some of my own beliefs about money and opened my eyes to new possibilities.
That's the power of, exploring new ideas, challenging conventional wisdom.
Right.
And I think even with its controversial aspects, the book ultimately encourages a proactive approach to personal finance.
Absolutely. So if there's one key takeaway we want to leave our listeners with, what would it be?
I think it would be this. Rich Dad, Poor Dad reminds us that financial freedom is a choice.
Okay.
It's not a matter of luck or circumstance.
Right.
It's about taking control of your financial destiny by educating yourself, investing wisely, and building a life of greater abundance.
It's about understanding that you have the power to create the financial future that you desire.